Um, yeah.
Good.
So we are going to ask for a business plan, and those are, you can get business plan models off of a lot of websites to follow. That'll walk you through the process. Most of the time, we look for a 2 to 3 year business plan. In those, we'll ask for you to do a projections. With those projections, we ask for broke down month to month for the first 1 to 2 years, and then an annual for the third year. Kind of bounce that off the same thing that SBA requires. But I mean, if you have an idea, it's out there most likely. If somebody's done some sort of idea that might not be exactly the same, but around that same type of thing. And the biggest key is somebody somewhere knows how that started or can answer questions that is in that field. That's one thing with a group like this. Everybody has a connection to somebody that might do something similar, or maybe even does the exact same thing that can help you overcome the obstacles that you need to find out. You know, one thing to figure out is, are you going to need a lot of startup capital? Or can you start it out on your own and build the business, and then, you know, as the capital starts to flow in, grow it? So do you need cash up front, or are you going to be able to start without that capital and then start to acquire it as the business is going? So you just need to find out what the walls you have to overcome to get into this business, to get it started and get it off the ground.
So do they walk into a bank and say, hey, Andrew, I'd like to start a business? And do you walk them through that, or do you point them in a direction, or do you say, you know, you have a checklist of any sort, you know, you have to have a business plan, and your business plan has to include this? Like, what is the first thing that people should consider?
So yeah, when people walk into me, I try to ask them what, you know, what is their drive behind this? You know, why are you proceeding this path? You've got to have a reason. And I tell them, let's start with a business plan. In South Mississippi, we have I wrote it down because we've sent people there and we've actually had businesses benefit from them. They're a little bit easier to deal with than the SBA. It was the South Mississippi Development and Planning District.
Yeah, we have Mitch McDowell on. He's actually with them.
Yes, I've had 3 clients that have used them in the past 2 years that we've been able to, you know, assist that to help their cash flow, to get them additional money. So up front, we can cover those loans that we're getting started with. They have been a big help with getting some projects that have gone on the Gulf Coast. So there's an SBA office actually in the downtown Gulfport location. You can set up the downtown Hancock Whitney location that you can set up meetings with. But usually people walk into me and they're starting a business, I really try to find out, you know, is this something that's a passion, or is this something you're out there wanting to make money with? Usually a passion gives them a little bit more of a push to do it. They're a little bit more involved in it at that point. And I can help, you know, when you walk and see me, I do want to help you try to put this business plan together. I'll tell you what needs to be on there. It doesn't have to, a business plan and your projections, they don't have to be, you know, down to the penny. We understand you're not gonna be able to get all of those figures. They just need to be relative and show kind of, you know, what direction your business is going, how you plan to grow it. You know, do you want to grow the business in 2 to 3 years? Once you get it off the ground, are you going to continue at that same rate? It's just a conversation that we have, and you figure out what their needs are as you're going. There's no box. Nobody fits into a box.
Well, I do believe that some of the challenges, let's say, even if we get people help with the business plan, it's the understanding the revenue generation piece of it. You know, you're given these, even with the SBA, they give these toolkits and they say, okay, fill this out. I mean, and I don't mean to take away, you know, from Mitch and his folks, because they do help and it's hands-on, but how do they know? Like when I was talking to Nichelle, even, we were saying, how do you price your cost per garment? And then how do you know what the cost of your supplies is going to be? And then how do you know how much you have to generate to cover your operating costs, to make a profit, so do you provide those type of services, or you're saying you partner with people like the SBA and SPD? Yeah. So that's one of them.
And I will be honest, no, at that point, you do want to do, I don't do that specific thing to tell you how much you would want to price everything and stuff on at that front. But I can, give you an insight of what, if you're wanting to later on down the road do lending, you want to acquire additional capital, what we look for on your cash flow point. A lendable cash flow for us is, your debt service coverage would be 1.25, 1.3. So that gives you an idea of, if your expenses are at, this number here, you need to be able to bring in this amount here. So that is something I can help you with on what your overall income needs to be off of your costs. But, you've got to find out who's going to be your suppliers for these items, who has those items that you can acquire, know what your costs are. That you have to do the market research on that. That's part of the startup, is you've got to know the market that you're getting into.
Okay. Some of the things that people run into also is collateral. It's money in the bank. What are you looking for from people when they apply? So let's say they have a strong business plan. They are able to illustrate some of the things that you're talking about. What are some of the other hindrances to getting the money that they need for the startup? What do you see most often an obstacle?
All right, Angie, I'll take that.
Yeah. Okay, James.
Yeah, a lot of times, being a startup is always tough. Banks or, really conservative-based lenders at the core of what we do. So a lot of times, a great business plan, all this together, it's like, okay, the bank's like, hey, we like this idea. Your numbers look good. You've done your work. You've done your research. But there's still some risk involved. It's new. We don't really know how it's going to work out. And so we do look for collateral. But depending on what kind of business you're doing, it could be what we call FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. You necessarily don't have to have the real estate, correct? If your business is going to be in lease space and you're going to bring in computers and, products to sell and tables and chairs, that can be used as collateral to get you the loan. So, the bank will take a lien on that loan. A lot of people, I think, get hung up on saying, the bank always wants real estate. And of course, real estate is stronger collateral, because it doesn't depreciate like the things you're buying. So a lot of times, and I've done a lot of loans and have partnered with the district a bunch and done a lot of SBA lending. A lot of times a new business will come in and, they need $100,000 for, tables, chairs, product, all this stuff. They've done their business plan. Their numbers look good. Their credit's, strong, and they seem like a safe credit risk. At that point, the banks will go out, and that's when we will, we'll start the application process. You don't necessarily have to go to the SBA first. We will look at the application, say, hey, we like this, and we're going to contact the SBA and run their application and partner with them to just kind of get that SBA backing for a new business, which that's what the SBA is there for. It is there to help lend money for business when banks don't want to quite, open up the wallet, because there may be a little more risk than banks are used to, and that's usually the case with startups. And if you're not familiar with like SBA lending and things like that, it's usually they guarantee a portion of the loan. That way, if it ever defaults, the bank gets a portion of the money back. So, I'm dealing with a gentleman right now, and I've talked to him about it, and I don't know if I poorly communicated or he didn't, or vice versa. We just didn't have a good conversation maybe. But he calls me. He's like, man, the SBA is not, returning my calls and this and that. And I said, Mr. So-so, I said, no. Send me your information. Let me put it together. And if it's something that looks viable, let us contact the SBA and start that process. That's a resource out there. I mentioned SMPDD, which is, I call it South Pacific Plan Development. Renaissance. You know, these are great programs too that we can maybe partner with and do some gap financing. You know, if you wanted to buy $100,000 worth of inventory, equipment, things like that, and the banks may say, hey, we're only going to do 70% of this. We're only going to give you $70,000. You've got to find the other $30,000. Well, if you're a startup business, the chances of you having $30,000 in the bank are probably pretty slim. So that's when we start working with other grant-making lending partners like the districts and Renaissance Corporation, and can potentially get you 100% financing to get the business open, get it started, additional working capital, and things like that. You know, my job as a banker is really not to tell you no. And maybe not to tell you it's not right now, but let's try to find a way to do it how. You know, let's know these outside resources, let's communicate through it. And that's really the approach that I try to take when working with clients is, you know, hey, let's find a structure to where this works for you. You know, because the bank terms are always not conducive to a startup business, unfortunately. And that's just being blunt, honest with y'all. So it's
What
very
are some
important.
of the biggest mistakes that people make coming to you first?
You know, and I'll with us in the banking side, you know, we don't necessarily look, everybody gets hung up on credit score, but credit performance, as we call it, or credit character, is very important to us. You know, if you're coming to us and there's been bankruptcies on your credit and stuff like that, you know, we are going to just have to say, hey, you've got to do a lot of credit repair, and you may be 3 to 5 years away from realizing your dream. You know, a bank's just not going to work with you right now due to this credit history. So we see that sometimes. You know, it's like I said, I mentioned score. You know, I have clients that may have a 650 credit score, but they paid all their bills on time. And that's what we look for on the business lending side. You know, if bills are being paid on time and things like that, that's part of the underwriting process. So we see that a lot with startups, unfortunately. Sometimes the credit is just not there. And, you know, sometimes if we're credit savvy enough and we can look at the credit, we can maybe give you some ideas on, hey, look, you need to go do this. You need to save $1,000 and do something cash secured to rebuild your credit, or, you know, to get you started again. And you may be able to repair it in 2, 3, 4 years. You can probably make this dream a reality, but it's going to take a little more work. So that's always a hindrance sometimes when dealing with clients and stuff, of course.
Well, tell us a little bit about that, what you just said about the credit repair or whatever. Do y'all help with that? Do you send them off to another agency? What are some of the things that people can do to help overcome some of the obstacles that you just talked about?
So I'm hesitant to send people to some of these credit repair places because some of them are money grab from what I've seen over the years. So be very cautious if you're wanting to do that, do your research. I do pull literature that tells you how to improve your credit that comes directly from the credit bureaus, such as Equifax, TransUnion, which is accurate information. You know, I used to do a lot of consumer lending in my first 5 years in banking, and I really learned credit and how credit reports work. So I actually do give some advice on that. You know, there's 2 types of credit. There's revolving credit, which would be your credit cards or lines of credit, which that's, you know, money available, you use it, you pay it down, it comes back available to you. And there's term debt, you know, that's your car note, your house note, that's principal and interest payments over a set amount of time for a set payment. And you have to have a strong credit score, you actually really have to have both of those things on your credit. If you just have term debt on your credit, you'll never crack 700, even if you pay it 100% of the time, on time. So there's ebbs and flows to it. If you have maxed out credit score is going to drop. You know, there's just little literature over clients that kind of talks about that. You know, keep your credit cards 33% of their balance, things like that.
Are y'all hearing that feedback?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, I had to get on my phone. Geneva, I made you a co-host, and Kiva, I made you a co-host. I'm going to close out my computer, so I got to get on my phone. Okay. But I do want to share this real quick. Y'all take a note of this because I think this is some good stuff.
I'm still getting some feedback.
Okay. Actually, wait. In the meantime, everybody start writing in the chat any questions you have for these experts, please. Write these notes down for me, James and Andrew, because I have to catch an Uber. Revolving line of credit, term loan, and purchase card credit debt. What I'd like to move into next is for people to understand what type of financial products they need when they start up. Okay, I'm going to end it on my desktop and I'm on my phone. So let's start talking about financial products that if they get the loan, they're starting up, what else do they need?
Okay, I'll start with the line of credit. So there's two. I'm kind of, whenever I train employees in the branch, and I was working as a branch manager, I explained loans as there's only two types of loans. There's a revolving line and a term. A revolving line is one that you can borrow and pay back, borrow and pay back, borrow and pay back. It's like a credit card. It's always available to you. As long as you pay it back, the credit comes back to you. Then you have a term loan. A term loan, once you open it up, you immediately get the funds, and that's a one-time thing. You pay it down for the rest of the term. So in saying that, there's two things inside of that. There's a secured term loan and an unsecured term loan, and there's a secured line of credit and an unsecured line of credit. And that's it. The collateral that we use for securing it has multiple different things. So I'll start talking about the line of credit and kind of what it's good for. A line of credit, you'll see kind of line of credit used with different people who maybe have expenses that they occur on the front end, and then they're going to sell that product and be able to pay that back down, and they'll have excess left over. So a good example is maybe a clothing boutique. They have to purchase all of their clothes ahead of time to have inventory. You couldn't just have a picture up in your clothing boutique of what this is, and then when somebody buys it, you have to get it shipped in. You want to have an inventory available to you. Line of credit does give you an option once you're operating to purchase this inventory, bring it in, have it available, and as you sell it, you can pay down the line of credit with what the expense was, and then the profit that you're making off of that can be moved into your account. Eventually, you'll see less and less use on your line of credit because your operations, your cash flows are getting better. Construction companies do this a lot too. If they win a contract and have to do a build, sometimes they have to go out and purchase lumber, they have to purchase material, they have to pay employees out of pocket before they get paid from the general contractor. So they have to float these maybe for 30 or 60 days before they actually start getting payment. A line of credit's a really good tool to help cover expenses until you're getting payments come in. So if you know what payments you have coming in and you know you get paid every 45 days from a certain vendor, and you need to cover those expenses, that's where a line of credit really helps out to cover those, to keep you in operation so you're not sitting on the sidelines waiting for that payment to come in before you can start operating again. That's really the best way line of credit should be used. And whenever we look at a line of credit, let's say we get you set up with line of credit, one thing to keep in mind is we look at your credit utilization. How do you use it? This is really important because you don't want to get a line of credit. Let's just say it's for a $10,000 line of credit. You don't want to get it from us, grab 10,000 out of it and pay interest only on it for the first full year until we have to sit here and renew your credit. At that point, we are probably going to move it to maybe a 6 month. We might go back to a 12, but we're going to look for you to have a pay down on that to start paying it down, or else it will get termed out. So credit utilization is a very big thing in how you use it. I know James hit on it earlier, but that is something we look at when we start renewing these lines. I know there were some questions that popped up. Let me see if it was, let me see if it had to do with this here.
Hey, Andrew, I want
Yes.
to add on the line of credit term loan comparison. The simplest way that I've talked to clients about it is, a line of credit is short-term working capital, period. You don't want to put anything long-term on lines of credit, because really all you're doing, your monthly bill is going to come in as interest only. It's short-term working capital. It's payroll. Say you have a big job coming up and you're not going to get paid for 45 days, but you got to make 30 days worth of payroll. That's where the line of credit comes in. You draw, you make payroll, you get paid on the sale of inventory, the completion of the job, pay the line of credit down, keep any extra as over as profits. Term is more for your long-term needs. If you need to buy a large piece of industrial equipment, real estate, anything like that, you want to put that on a fixed rate, principal and interest payments, and have a set payment schedule on whatever that is. And so, that's the biggest thing. A lot of clients will, want to use that line of credit because, the monthly payment is so low on it, but it's only interest only. And if you're buying long-term things for it or long-term assets for the business, you're really shooting yourself in the foot putting that on credit or revolving credit. You really want to carve those two things out. Term debt needs to be term business needs, and revolving lines of credit needs to be short-term working capital that you intend to pay down and pay off quickly.
Yeah, term notes are really good for anything that carries depreciation, because you don't want to have a line of credit pay interest only on something that depreciates over time and carry it for 5 years and it's worth nothing at that point. The question in the chat was, how long do businesses need to be in business for a personal guarantee, or is there a certain credit amount? James answered it. We require a personal guarantee usually from anybody over 20% ownership in the company. So if there's 3 people in the company that are all over that 20%, then we usually require each one of those to be a personal guarantee on there.
Okay, my phone keeps going in and out, and I have some helpers that may jump in and ask you. Again, the people, the entrepreneurs that are on, this is really the time for you guys to ask questions, even based off of the last presentation with Jonathan. If there's anything that was residual from that you didn't understand. Again, we have a mix of people, so I think we've gotten through startup in terms of, if you want to continue to elaborate, what sources of income, sources of in terms of if they start with nothing. You've talked about collateral, you've talked about credit history, you've talked about some of the agencies that one can use to become viable before they get to you. You talked about some of the most common mistakes. And then we segued into, okay, you've gotten the loan. What are some of the products? So is there anything that we didn't cover in terms of startup? And then if we did cover it, what else do we need to know? You get the loan. What are some of the other things that we must take into consideration? Those are 2 separate things.
Yeah. Hey, Angie, I want to backtrack on one little thing real quick. Because I know I've seen some people on here who I met at the last meeting, and I know some of y'all are already established businesses, new business owners, and then of course some are wanting to get into business. One of the most important key things that I can give advice for, and it not only will help you with the banks or your lending needs, it'll 100% help you keep your business together and organized. Keep good books. Invest in your QuickBooks, do your numbers, do your profit and loss reports, do your revenue reports, do your balance sheets, learn that stuff. Because as you do those things daily, weekly, or however often you may do them, you're going to notice things in your business and where you need to make a change to make you more profitable too. And then the second part of that is when you keep good books and you come to the bank and they're clean and they look good, it's much easy for the bank to work with you and give you a lending opportunity and do something for you when, the books are well kept and we have great financial reports, So I really encourage everybody, take the time, learn how to balance your books. It can only benefit your business as well, because as you do them weekly, you may see shifts and changes in inventory, what's working, some stuff get, dead inventory. And as you do that and keep up with your stuff, you can really shift the way you change business and make changes week to week, month to month to be more profitable as well. So I'd highly encourage, that's probably one of the best pieces of advice I can give a new business owner is learn the book side of it and try your best or invest in a program, that helps you with it, like a computer program or software program.
Okay. So I'm going to start calling people out. Like Miss Evelyn. Do you have any questions about the viability of your, getting capital for your organization? You might want to get a van, or you might want to get some type of motor vehicle so you can move from church to church. Do you know where you would begin with that? I mean, is that let me ask the bankers, should she use her own personal, money and just get a traditional car loan, or should she wrap it up into like a business loan? To her business is that she would have a mobile boutique, and she's catering to an exclusive audience where she wants to move from location to location easily, and she would soup it out like, so it would accommodate some garments and things like that. When it's used for business, is there a different type of loan or such that she could consider? And Miss Evelyn, pipe in here if you have a question for them. But I'm curious about that.
Continue
So
on
Jennifer.
for 4 miles.
Let me go ahead real quick. And you asked the question, as for us with the purchase of the vehicle, with the businesses that are underneath $1 million in revenue, they fall into a category that when they purchase, if they're purchasing a vehicle, we can price those the exact same as consumer. So you're getting the same rates. You have the same rates and terms available, and the vehicle would be in the business's name. So the rates aren't going to be a difference between those two options there. And that's, James was talking about having good books. One thing I always tell my clients is have a good relationship with your CPA or your accountant. Let them know your business plans, because if they don't know what you're trying to do, they're just going to go in and do their job and they're just going to follow it as everything is. But you want to have a conversation with them, let them know what you're planning to do. That way they have insight to your future with their business.
Well, actually, when I talk to my CPA, she tells me I just need to use my line of credit. So I won't have credit card debts and things of that nature. And as buying a vehicle, I'm glad to hear what you just said. So I would just drive in, I would just use that and count it as I've done in the past. So that wouldn't be a benefit to me to go through this process to get money for something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just trying to throw out a scenario in the event someone else had the same type of need. Curious to say, do you go for traditional? Do you wrap it into your entire loan application? But I think it would depend. So we have someone then from Jeff. Jeff, with a loan to a cooperative with several hundred member owners, whose credit would be considered? Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're talking about? And then Kiva has one too.
That was me, Miss Angie, not Miss Kiva. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Is that the same thing with the, okay, before we move to Jeff, let's continue on this line. Chris wants to open a food truck. So would, because it's directly correlated to his business, I guess even a regular car could be directly correlated to your business because you got to get back and forth to clients or whatever, but how does that work? Would the funding go into a traditional loan? He just gets a car loan, or should it be wrapped into business expenses? Or is that like a not intelligent question?
I actually had a client approach me for a food truck. And the way that it was actually structured is they had to purchase the truck individually. So they purchased a empty shell. So they purchased that as a titled vehicle. So we ran that as a title. We could run that as a titled vehicle, or it can be ran as equipment. So it's the same thing. You're purchasing that, but they had to do a build out on the inside of the truck. So James said earlier, FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So we actually had two separate loans for the client. We had the purchase of the truck, and then we had an FF&E loan, which paid for the grill, it paid for everything on the inside. It had a freezer, a generator, anything like that. So you had your traditional vehicle loan, let's say 60 months at this time, 60 months. And then we had also a 5-year on the FF&E, which was going to be all of the material on the inside. So that was specific thing had two separate loans for it. I haven't done one that had everything built into one.
That was my question. I was going to ask you that because somebody actually came to me today and said they had a truck that's already built out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to potentially look at it. But if it's already built out, how will I come to you with a loan with that? Because it's already built out. That's just one. It's already technically a business already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've done built out, already ready to go food trucks that didn't need to be, upgraded and built out. And yeah, basically, we'd look at it the same. We'd put it as a business loan and look at it the same way, you would probably be used to a traditional car loan. We're going to give you a 5-year term. It's still a titled vehicle as a food truck. All the equipment's already in it. So there's no need for a separate loan or two build outs. So, if it's, you're purchasing it for this, you're going to request amount of money to borrow for that purchase price, and we're going to put it on probably a 5-year note, the same way we would a car loan. So it'd be pretty simple, to run it through. If that one's ready to roll, and doesn't need any extra money or input into it, then yeah, you just buy it, take title, and we lend against that title.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're Jeff has a question, and I think this is Samantha. It just says iPhone, and we'll move to you. But Jeff had that question with a loan to a cooperative with several hundred members and owners whose credit will be considered. So Jeff, tell him a little, just really quickly what you mean. He has a board of directors and he has multiple members who contributed into this co-op. Can you have the ability to talk, Jeff?
Use the left 2
Yeah,
ways.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
What the project is a cooperative owned grocery store, a regular open to the public, but with members get certain benefits and privileges, through their ownership. Their ownership is an equity investment into the co-op. So we're selling owner equity. We plan to raise funds through memberships, grants, preferred shares, member loans, and miscellaneous. Okay. Once the cooperative gets funds or it appears feasible that we are going to proceed with the project, we would probably at some point want to hire a general manager for the grocery store. And then we start considering everything, the needs and what have you for the grocery store. So between sometime before trying to hire a general manager, we would need to try to leverage any loans and what have you that we can. So my concern is whose credit would be considered. And obviously, it's on us to raise a certain amount of capital through those sources that I mentioned. But how does that play into the loan?
Yeah, Jeff, can get to be some complicated lending, and that's something we'd probably have to sit down and really run through. Depending how the shares are structured, and some co-op lending, the shares are pledgeable. If some of the ownership agrees to pledge those preferred shares and stocks, or however it's structured, that can be used as collateral to raise funds. If the co-op owns real estate and the board can vote on it, we may take the real estate, but we may not require a guarantor in that case. I did mention when it comes to business lending, A lot of times, we always do require a guarantor, but there are situations where we don't have a personal guarantee. One would be big corporate lending. Like if one of these big casinos is borrowing money, that's a big corporate thing. There's all kinds of other factors into it. There's not really a personal guarantee because it's a big stock company. Large churches, they're nonprofit organizations, and a lot of other larger nonprofit organizations, we don't always require a personal guarantee. So depending on how the co-op is structured, how the share is structured, that's one of those things where they may, no one's credit may not have to be a part of it. Sometimes, the co-op decides to borrow through the board. Membership decides, hey, we'll pledge the shares to the bank as collateral, and then the bank has those as collateral. So it's a lot of moving parts on how you operate, but there's certainly ways to do it. I would say at times the bank could come back, and we've done this with other nonprofits or like a church or a nonprofit charity organization. Hey, your financials are not there yet. Is there anyone in the organization that's willing to be a guarantor that brings some strength, and let the organization decide if there's a member that is willing to step up to the plate? So that's just one of those things we'd really have to sit down and probably take us a good hour meeting to go through it. But there's ways to do it for sure.
Okay. All right.
So
Thank you.
thank you. Christina, are you have the ability to ask your question, or can you unmute, or do you need me to ask? You got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Hi, guys. I definitely wanted to jump in there. With being an owner of a home health agency, there's credentialing that needs to be in place in order to gain revenue, such as being credentialed with the insurance companies, Medicare, Medicaid, Humana, and they have other private insurances that we would love to be credentialed with. These insurances require that you are partnered with an MD or have on staff an MD or on staff a nurse before approving credentialing to be able to refer clients to you. And that way you'll be able to bill those insurances when you provide the services to the clients. So that's what I was asking. I'm thinking that would be a part of the operations cost. And if so, how would that tie into a loan?
That would show it. I mean, if you're having them on the payroll, if they're on your payroll at that point, is that kind of what I'm gathering? Is that Dr. Mill on your payroll? So they'll actually fall into your profit and loss statement underneath your payroll expense. So at that point, that will go into your cash flow. That will go into one of your expenses that we're looking at from your income aspect to get your cash flow. So if you're doing let's say you're making a projection, you're looking at 2022, adding a new doctor and adding a new nurse, then you would have to add them into, you can take your existing and you can add them into your existing because you have a good existing number. You're in business. You know what you're doing on a year-to-year basis, month to month, week to week. So if you add them in based off what their salary is going to be per year, or maybe I'm not sure exactly how it works, if it's per recommendation or anything like that. And if you know that you're going to get, this doctor says, well, I usually have 3 patients a month or 5 patients a month that could really benefit from your program. And usually what you're billing and what you're getting from that, you can really kind of nail that number down. You have a great idea. So you can build a projection and know what you're paying this doctor versus what you're going to receive on the backside from his referrals. So yeah, you're correct. That would go in your operating expenses because you would incur the expense of a new employee. You would have another employee that you're having to pay out.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And, hey, Christina, and I know you mentioned from a lending perspective, I've done this with some nursing centers and stuff. You grow and you need to bring on staff, which can bring on more revenue and things like that. I don't necessarily have a problem with that going on a line of credit. You have big startup costs to get new staff on. But what you got to be aware of is, of course, that staff is going to generate income, but that additional income they're generating for the time being you probably want to make sure a big chunk of that is getting that line of credit back down to zero before you start capturing that as net income. You know, you don't want that debt to sit out there. You hire these people and you make a minimum payment, the debt's just sitting out there. So, you know, boost up, you know, pull off the credit, hire the staff, the additional income they're bringing in after they're getting paid, you know, take that line of credit back down and then start capturing your profits once you get that debt back down. So, but yeah, that can go on a lot of credit from a lending purpose for sure.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up for me.
Fantastic. Okay, so Michelle, Denisha, Derek, Carl, do y'all have anything that you want to ask these experts while we have a few more minutes, and or judges and coaches? Is there something we're not covering that we need to get from these gentlemen before we wrap it up?
While everybody's seeing the question, I'll hit on the term loan. We kind of talked about a couple of things, the build out. So if you've got a lease facility that you're leasing and you've got to put additional rooms up in it, you know, that's a term loan that we can do to help assist with that. It doesn't, like James said, a term loan doesn't have to be the certain real estate. There's a lot of things that we can fit in as collateral. And that's where, when I started in banking, I started as doing consumer loans mostly. And I did not know all the things that we could use as collateral. And a lot of times I would have a client sit down with me, and James was actually my business banker when I first started with the bank. So I'd reach out to him and I would say, hey, I've got a client that came in and they want to open this, and they say, you know, what can we do to get them started? And that was one of the things. Sit down and talk with somebody who actually knows, you know, what's going on, and have a conversation with them. Because if they don't have that answer right there for you, we have people that we can ask questions to. Nobody has them all. So you've got, you know, ask, find out, because we're gonna find that answer out for you to assist you the best we can. We're here for you. As I tell people, I'm your cheerleader. So, you know, tell me what you're trying to do, and I go to battle for you with everybody else. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. Make sure, you know, you're asking all the questions that you have.
Okay. Carl is my mentee, and one of the things that he's been working on is a prototype for a mobile unit for hairstylists. Like you would have it all in one. It would be like a rolling mobile device where you can set up, if you have a water source, utilize it to wash hair, and then be able to also, you know, blow dry the hair and take it from place to place, like skilled nursing facilities, assisted living facilities, even have it out in public places. That's like a prototype situation where it doesn't really exist. He's done the research, he's got it trademarked. How does even one begin with that? Is it the same terms that you're talking about? And, you know, if it's a strong business plan, if it's a credit history that's good, if he's got collateral, if he has the ability to supplement the loan, does the idea dictate any barriers in the fact that it doesn't exist?
No, I mean, because it does, but it's one thing that you've talked about, like the barrier to entry was going to be the debt service cover. And you said it, does he have the ability to also fund the debt that he's incurring on his own? Is this going to be something that he's invested full time in, or is this something that he's doing as a secondary job to get started? That's going to be one of those tough ones that you got to dive into and look and see, is it a viable, the business model, is it a viable model? Is it something that can actually happen? You know, and how far along are you, and do you have somebody that can build it? Or are you still looking for somebody that can build it? That's a couple other things to think about. Because if you have somebody that can build it, now you know your price. You've probably gotten a price on your design, so you know how much it's going to cost. You know, we're on down the line in that process of you starting a new business with that.
Okay, thank you. We did have a question come in from Michelle. She says, my business will sell products on hand and services which will require invoices. How should I document my income, cash basis, accrual, or both? What are some of the tools that will best be used, you know, to document the finances?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna Yeah, y'all are probably going to kill me for saying this, but that's kind of a question that's tough to answer because of how, she operates and things like that. Or I would definitely pose that question to a CPA. I'd hate to give you an answer on that and you went down that path and it caused you a tax burden or something. There's a lot of reasons why you should do different ways. And so unless we got in a lot more detail, I don't want to answer that question and give you bad advice. That's the worst thing I could do for you.
That's fair. And Geneva's been saying that from the beginning. And then I know your colleague Larry Addenhofer had it in his PowerPoint, like get yourself a good CPA, surround yourself by people who are experts in the field. Even if you use them initially and they can train you on some things, make sure that you're utilizing various resources. And I don't know if Mitch is still on it. If that's something, Geneva, you could probably speak to too, that they can help you with in the preparation piece of it with the SPDC.
We can talk about the differences between the two and what it means to be accrual based and what it means to be cash based, but we can't recommend one over the other because we're not allowed to give tax advice.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. We just to give everybody a little bit of information, I'm with the Mississippi Small Business Development Center. So funding comes from the SBA. So part of what we do is we help people that are looking to start a business go through the process of getting some market research, taking that research and working through a business plan or the narrative portion of the business plan. Once we work through that, then we take that plan and we put a set of financial projections, or we put numbers to it and we test it, okay, to see if this thing makes money. Now that test is just simply a best guess, but we do take people through that process. We also assist with business setup, and I think we have a class that we do. It's called 10 Steps to Starting a Business. And I think step number one, and everybody has talked about this today, the most important step is to hire a good certified public accountant or CPA and get a good set of books set up, because you can use those books to help manage your business. So I just want to let everybody know that, my organization, we do a lot of, hey, you wanting to start something? Let's get some research, let's plan it out, and then let's put some numbers to it and test it.
Okay. And now, is that Derek Eady or is that Derek who's in the program? You want to unmute yourself and let me know? Because
that's Derek James in the program.
Okay, Derek. We have 2 more minutes. You have anything that you want to ask about your company that you want to start, the truck thing?
I don't want to start a truck. I apologize. I'm not on camera. I have an event tomorrow. I'm getting my hair done. But I have Division Street Worldwide. It was a multi thing, but I was told to break it down to my 2 best assets. So that was the music side that I do, the musical production, and that was also the video side that I do. That's the video production. The information was very good tonight. Like, it rekindled some things that I've heard before. A question that I would have, for the bankers, for the loan managers, those guys, if a client was to come to you and already knew that they didn't have the credit score, and they also, with them not having the credit score, they usually, will go the cash route for whatever it is that they had to do. But if they presented a business proposal or a proposition that you guys as established bankers and all that thing, loan managers, and you could see that the business plan was a lucrative one and it had potential, it was laid out, would that kind of affect the way that you guys receive that person's presentation? If they can show, like you said, outside of just like you said, a quantitative thing, like a number, like the financial score or the credit score, but if they can show, production, growth, success, they can show things like that. But they know that if they get the resources that you guys provide, it could take it to that next level that will make it that, substantial business that's, excelling.
And Derek, I'm gonna tell you something, man. Whenever you walk in my office, you're a clean slate when you walk in my office. I don't know your credit score. Man, I just know you for the person that's sitting in front of me. One of the C's of credit is character. You know, like I said, I'm your cheerleader. A lot of times, whenever you come in, you give me an idea. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you if it's a good idea or a bad idea. I'm going to ask you why. And you said something about if you're doing a lot of business in cash. That's a piece of collateral that we can use to set you up with something to, we can set you up with a line of credit that is secured by cash. So instead of using that cash on hand, you can use that line of credit to help build your credit worthiness with the bank. And in a year, you maybe you don't have the best credit score, but in a year you've been using that line of credit really well. You've been drawing on it, paying it down, drawing on it, paying it down. You've shown that you understand that and you're responsible with it. That goes a long way. It goes a long way with us. Man, it's just like a friendship. You do me good, I can do you good. I try to do my best I try to do my best for people that I can, and that's it. I'm here to see you succeed. That's it. So yes, we don't know your credit score when you walk in the door, man. We're looking at everything green when you come in. You can't let that hang over your head. We're trying to help you. I'm in Biloxi. I'm in downtown Biloxi, and I've been there for the past 3.5 years. And there's nothing I want more than to see Howard full of businesses with people walking up and down that street. That would be amazing for me. So that I hope that kind of answers your question. If you present something that's good, I'm gonna, push it out there.
Thank you, Derek, and thank you for that.
I appreciate it.
I apologize. I was thinking about I don't have my business names in front of me. Okay. I know that we're running a little long, but I have another question. What's the least amount of secured business line of credit? So if y'all would answer that, and let's wrap up. If y'all could name the C's, the characters. I had that for y'all tonight too from Larry's presentation. So they can, I don't know if that was covered in the last but if we could wrap up that. So first of all, Carl, put your phone on mute, please. We can hear that background. What's the least amount of secured business line of credit?
2,500.
Okay, there's that. All right, let's wrap it up with the C's. Can y'all know them by heart?
James, hit the C's for me. I got character.
I'll send it back out if y'all know it by heart.
The 5 C's of credit.
I put you on the spot. Yeah, I bet you we can Google it.
I'm doing it now.
Okay.
You took care.
And maybe elaborate.
Cash.
Oh, come on. It's character, capital. No, character, collateral. Capital, capacity, and condition.
Okay.
Capital is cash.
So capital is cash, yeah.
Tell me what the last two were and elaborate on that. I think we covered the other three just organically. What was the condition? What does that mean?
Condition, this definition, I'm gonna read the definition of it. Condition refers to the specifics of the project you are going to work together on. So condition is going to be as existing, new, something along those lines.
Okay, and what was that other one in the last two?
Capacity.
Capacity. What's that mean?
Look at that as your debt to income ratio. Do you have the ability to fit this debt? Can you handle this debt into your existing or into your projections? Is it a viable debt?
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Capacity. I've always come up in banking as that is the most important C of credit and lending. If the proposed loan with the business plan or whatever, if you don't have the capacity to repay it or the projected cash flow or current cash flow, the bank's doing you a disservice by giving you a loan. That to me, there's got to be ability to repay the debt. That's always the first thing the bank looks at before collateral, before everything is their ability or what is the ability to repay the debt. So to me, capacity is the most important thing when you're looking to borrow money.
Excellent. All right. Any last thoughts from anyone? Andrew, James?
No,
Nope. You good?
Anytime y'all do something, I'm glad to participate.
Okay, that's wonderful. Coaches, judges, y'all good? Participants, you're good? Carl's digging into something. I don't know. But I appreciate y'all for getting on. I think this was a great session. And we really appreciate you for your insight. And
Thanks for having
participants
us.
will be back in touch with the next steps, okay?
Thank you, Angie.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So, Muffin, what